What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily podcast powered by Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. It's about to be a little run on commitments here heading into the weekend, starting off with five-star defensive tackle Lamar Brown. Miami's in his final group. Not overly optimistic on that one. Feels like LSU, but we'll see what he decides coming around noon. We'll talk about that decision. Also, Miami expanding the defensive tackle board. We talked about offer in Mobile, Alabama for Mississippi State commit yesterday. That has been expanded even more to the Pacific. And we'll talk about one of the recruits that Miami is in contact with directly through Mario Cristobal. Jackson Cantwell getting accolades, pretty historic accolades, really. So lots to talk about, your questions and more on the show. First, some folks that stay getting accolades, that is Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anijar and Levine. Pete, hop in here.
Good morning, D.
How we doing?
Doing well. I don't know that I'm too excited about this decision today, but it's how it is lately here.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a reason why you're kind of expanding the defensive tackle board. You don't have a ton of confidence in some of the guys necessarily that you are recruiting. But, there's a chance always when you're in the mix. Mario's pulled rabbits out the hat. According to right now we're talking about five-star defensive tackle Lamar Brown, best defensive tackle in the country, really, out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He goes to school right there on LSU's campus. He's either the best offensive guard in the country or the best defensive lineman in the country, depending where you put him. Either way, stud player, top 5 player in the country, 6'4", 285. Guys visited Miami twice unofficially. Visited Miami in spring, visited Miami once unofficially, then once officially. So visited Miami in spring, visited Miami later on for an official visit. Did all the kind of cryptic tweets about loving the 305 and palm trees and all that. Showed video of him riding in the motorcade with Mario, which I guess that's been a kind of a negative lately, right? That was AJ Halsey did that too. So we'll see where that one goes. But Miami's in the mix. Texas A&M and LSU really the top 2 teams. My guess would be LSU, but Texas A&M is certainly in that conversation. Gio's asking, I know it's too early to tell, but how do you feel about Damian Lewis, D-Lew on the trail, Miami's defensive tackle coach? We'll see. So far,
I have a little, I've done some digging, right, D, because I think people are trying to see why has Miami not been able to land a guy this cycle at DT. Obviously, it's D-Lew's first full cycle here. And I think we have to look at the bigger picture here. We're upset as fans that they haven't landed this sort of prospect in this class, right, at the defensive line, this Lamar Brown type. There's only 2 or 3 of them out there. Miami seems to be recruiting all of them, and it doesn't look like it's trending their way with any of them. But again, I've tried to ask around and see kind of what the feedback is from most of these guys, right? Because obviously Miami's been in the mix. These haven't been like Miami has no chance. Miami's had these guys on campus multiple times. There has been at points good momentum going with certain guys, Lamar Brown being one of them. You talked about that weekend. But when you're talking about landing this caliber of recruit, everything has to be, there's always exceptions, but everything has to be on point, right? How did you land Jackson Cantwell, the number 1 recruit in the country? You have a historical track record with the coaches that are there in Mirabal and Cristobal, even as the head coach, developing offensive linemen. Historically, okay, you have recent success stories with them. You have a top 5 unit in the country at the position you're recruiting at. Defensive line, none of this is true right now. And that's not a shot at Jason Taylor or Damian Lewis whatsoever. Their resumes show that they should be coaching at this level. But if you're a 5-star recruit and you're looking at Damian Lewis hasn't produced a first-round pick, a second-round pick at that position. He hasn't had the time to do it yet. I've heard he's a tremendous coach. I've heard that unit took big steps, and I know you've heard the same during the spring. But your unit was not great last year, and it wasn't him coaching it, but your unit was not great last year. When we've talked about when was the last time Miami's had a 300-plus defensive lineman go high, D, right?
Yeah.
And then again, So, and then you don't have like a recent guy that you say like, okay, we took this guy from this to this. All of this to say, I believe in these two coaches at this on the defensive line. But if people are asking for why we can't land one right now, to land someone of this caliber, everything's got to be on point. And I don't know that it's there yet at this position.
No, and I think regional, right? You're talking about Southeast players going to Southeastern Conference schools, right? That's just going to be a regional deal. It's going to be a reflection of the success that they've had at that position between Georgia. In this case, LSU's had some good defensive linemen. I mean, always sending guys to the draft. Texas A&M.
A&M's had good history, man, recently.
Shamar Stewart just got drafted. A Miami kid goes to Texas A&M, gets drafted first round. How much did he develop?
And they've had other ones, and they've had other ones recently too.
Myles Garrett's the best defensive player probably in the NFL. He's a Texas A&M guy. You've had Adabuki.
Nick Scourton, second round. Scorton.
Purdue transfer. What's the guy from Baltimore? Adabuke, the defensive tackle. And these are different coaching staffs.
Yeah, Justin Adabuke, yeah.
These are different coaching staffs, but people see the logo on the helmet on draft day, right? So who's the assistant coach? I don't think that matters. Jiren saying Shamar Stewart got drafted off of traits, not development. I don't disagree with you, but I mean, these guys aren't making those kind of fine-tuned assessments, right? They're seeing guys go there and get drafted first round, and that's kind of the way they see it. Whereas Leonard Taylor, right, if I'm just being honest, and he had his own issues, a lot of his own issues, and now he's starting to come together here in the pros, which is great to see. He looks like he's fulfilling his potential with the Jets, which is what you want to see. But if you're playing devil's advocate, you say, all right, well, 6'4", 285, 5-star, top 10 player, that looks like Leonard Taylor's 247 page, and he went undrafted. Again, I think a lot of that had to do with things that were not necessarily the coaching staff, but it is what it is. If Leonard Taylor's going first round, a lot of this stuff looks different, I think. At least it starts to look different.
Yeah, that's all. That's the basic feedback I've gotten, D, because we get in the question a lot. Why does Miami not have the NIL? That was the other part of the thing. Everything was on point with Cantwell. You need the NIL package as well. And D, I'm not saying Miami's the highest bidder in like this race right now, for example. But if like they needed to get to a certain number, I'm sure that it would be there for a guy like this. That's my guessing going on there. But I don't think an NIL package is what's keeping this guy away from Miami if you wanted to come to Miami.
No, definitely not. Miami would pay for this guy. They think he's elite. Brother Vince saying, I dislike when folks say Miami hasn't developed this player or that player, but we see not so good players get drafted high off potential, not production. At the end of the day, there's, these very specific distinctions. I mean, if you're Leonard Taylor, if you're looking at Leonard Taylor, let's say you're a South Florida guy. I know none of these guys are from South Florida, but just using that as an example, because South Florida gets a lot of these kind of comments. Let's say you're a South Florida guy and you see Leonard Taylor go to Miami and get undrafted. You see Shamar Stewart go to Texas A&M and go first round. You look, they're very similarly ranked out of high school. Different positions slightly, but pretty similar. So when you see that and you're a kid, young man, whatever, you're going to get your college decision and you see that, how do you perceive it? So I think those are the things that Miami
perception's reality. Yeah.
And I mean, it is what it is. I mean, that is true. They were the same ranking of prospect and one got undrafted and one went first round.
But I'm talking about, who cares if it was developed or not? They just haven't, Miami hasn't had a guy go high enough to justify saying, well, this is our track record right now. And whether it was traits based or development, it really doesn't matter.
100%, which is why you're going to see offensive line continue to be a spot Miami recruits well because of the track record. I think tight end, you will see Miami to continue to recruit well. We'll see how this class lands, but you already have Isaiah Briggs, who's top 10 in the country, right? So top 70 player in any position, top 10 tight end in the country. So, you see that continue to bear fruit. You had Brock Schott last year, who was a pretty nice recruit. Luca Gilbert was a 4-star. Elijah Lofton the year before that, you got him from Texas. So, Riley Williams, who since left, he was a top 3 tight end in the country. So you're getting guys at the positions that you're producing players, but you're not producing enough players at other spots yet. I think that will start to change. You get Ruben Bain in the first round now, and you're ready Greg Rousseau, who just signed a big deal. He signed, right, Greg Rousseau, or is that not happen? I thought he signed.
I don't think that's signed because we talked about it, and I still hadn't seen anything. Actually, wait, did he?
Let's see.
You know what he did? I got to tell you the truth. He did, but when it came out, it was way less than I thought it would be. I thought he'd break the bank. I mean, he's making 17.5 a year, but for a guy like him, I thought it would have been past 20.
But 54 guaranteed. That's a pretty good number, right? You tell me. I mean, you're the agent, but 4 years.
It's great. Guaranteed. I thought he would have broken 20 a year, but
yeah.
I don't know.
That's a big money deal. So I think that kind of stuff helps. And then obviously Jalen Phillips, the injuries have hurt him, but he's just somebody that can still get paid. And then you're talking about a Ruben Bain potentially going first round. Those are the kind of things you need to see more of for the Canes to just continue to expand the positions. To me, defensive tackle, and I've said this on the show, it's a 5-star position. Like, that's not a position you want to expand the board on, although we'll talk about it here in a second about expanding the board. But that's not a position that you necessarily want to expand the board on. You want, in my opinion, to land the Lamar Browns if you can. There's a position you spend money on in high school. It's hard to get in the portal. So these are losses if you lose a Lamar Brown. If you lose, Bryce Perright already going to Texas A&M, which maybe that influences Lamar Brown. Nolan Wilson going to Alabama. A few of these kind of going sideways on you. You got to get 5 stars. However, I do think that, the best you can do right now is expand the board and kind of see where it goes. Because if it gives you at least a shot. You have to have numbers at that position, whether it's Dante Simpson last year ended up being good. You got to try to expand it. But ultimately, this is a money position. And all you can do right now, I think, you've tried to get these top guys. You've fallen short. It is what it is. It's a loss if you don't get them. Expand the board. And then also Armando Blunt, Justin Scott, Hayden Lowe, all defensive tackles or defensive end, defensive tackle kind of hybrids. Those guys have to go pro and go pro at a high level.
Calais Campbell still active, as Two-Tone mentions. Unfortunately, I don't think that has much of a weight on these recruits coming out now.
And James Johnson, another one I mentioned that went to Georgia from Miami Northwestern, originally from New Jersey, lived in Fort Myers for a bit. I think Miami will, if anyone's a flip candidate, he's one just because of the proximity. So I wanted to, shout out to CaneSport. They had a nice article here, but I want to talk about expanding the board. A guy that's very, very fun to watch by the name of Viliami Maola.
I think he goes by Ami.
Ami? How do you say that? Give us the pronunciation.
Ami Moala.
Ami Moala. Kind of a crazy story. He's traveled around the country, really. He's been to Arizona, been to Utah, been to Eugene, Oregon, Willamette, which my dad's from Oregon, and he has a T-shirt that says, "It's Willamette, damn it," because people say Willamette. It's actually Willamette. So he was at Willamette High School in Eugene, was committed to Oregon, which made sense, obviously. Decommitted there. And the story from Oregon is he was like someone they wanted. It was not a situation where Oregon didn't want the player. There's rumors that his dad is stuck outside the country. I believe his family's from Tonga, and they can't get him into the country. So other schools, some rumors like North Carolina's Bill Belichick and Lombardi, these guys are trying to get him into the country from Tonga, calling in favors, I guess, with the big man. But we'll see how that one goes. But this was a guy that Oregon wanted that decommitted, and he said right away, this Moala quotes as CaneSport, Miami coach Mario Cristobal reached out to my agent, who happens to be Tua Tagovailoa's father, told him the Hurricanes wanted him really bad, and then reach out to the personnel guys. A lot of guys are on vacation right now as far as assistant coaches, but reach out to personnel guys, spoke to all three. Mario's never on vacation, so he's talking to him, and they're trying to get him on a visit here in the fall. So interesting mix of players. Again, I think Cal's there, BYU, Florida, but I think the school that has some buzz is North Carolina. But if this thing goes longer, I think Miami's got a chance. You have a big Samoan presence on staff with Coach Keke. And, of course, you have the Mauanoa. You have S.J. Alafatuli. You got some guys here to sell.
Yeah, this is what you're looking for, right? I mean, this is what they're missing. He's not a 5-star, but I think you see the size and athleticism and strength really that look at this. This is great. No, I'm not very hopeful based on the recent track record. I'm not going to lie to you, D, but yeah, this would be a nice one.
Yeah, I like the power this guy plays with. I watched some of his camp stuff. Really, the only guy that blocked him was Ryan Moret. Your guy from Southbridge who ended up going to Ole Miss. I wonder if that one, we'll look back and say it was a miss. I hope it's not, but he looked good in those highlights. Otherwise,
I'll say this: he had 2 years to commit to Miami and didn't pull the trigger, so he had his opportunity.
Yeah, no, you're right.
That's what I've gotten. It's not like they didn't want him. So
the profile here with Moala, power, right? Power profile, straight line, kind of upright, just really no frills. He has twitch and burst, but I don't know if he's like a fluid athlete like a Lamar Brown. I think this guy is straight up go forward, pop you. Just a very physical player who I'm trying to find out his where he's from. I think he's from, like I said, I think he's from Tonga originally. So we'll see on Ami Moala. But listen, you have made an effort to land Samoan players, Polynesian players. And this guy right here is somebody who has a need position. Obviously, he plays with the physicality that you like. Pull up another highlight here. Look at this guy, man. This guy looks the part. I'll tell you that, just in terms of what you want. You see guys like this in the NFL all the time. All right, here we go. Let's see him here. Look at this dude. Look at the power. Look at the guy just looks mean. But you see straight ahead, right? Not a fat guy, powerful build, but just right there, man. Not a lot of dancing. He is going straight at you and straight at the quarterback. Just come from descendants of warriors. It's in my blood to be a baller on the field. Yeah, sign me up. Yeah, you just see these guys always getting it drafted.
Power in his hands, man. When he extends that arm, it's over.
Yeah, man. I think if you're talking about expanding the board, this is where I like getting expanded. Guys like this. Also had an offer to a kid from Mobile, Alabama we talked about yesterday. So the Southeast, Polynesian. I mean, this is really the bread and butter for defensive linemen, defensive tackles. So I think you're doing the right things. The first choice is obviously to win the battles for the Lamar Browns of the world. And if you don't do that, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say it's not a loss, but you got to just do what you can. So if you lose those battles, you move on, you expand the board, you call guys like this, as Maro's doing, obviously on vacation, and then you develop like crazy when it comes to Armando Blunt, Justin Scott, the guys, Dante Simpson, the guys that you need to turn into pros so that you can go ahead and, make that the selling point for the next generation with Maola of Tongan descent. Obviously still Polynesian. There is a selling point with the Samoan success you've had with Samoans, with Penei Sewell, with Francis Mauanoa. So that does translate there. And yeah, I think you brought in Coach Misapeka. You've done some things to get this pipeline going. Right now, I don't think we have anybody on the radar Polynesian. So this to me makes a lot of sense. It's worth fighting for with North Carolina. Who knows what North Carolina is up to? But I think this is a guy that makes sense there to be a brawler on the interior.
Yep. Agreed. Bagging up says DT, linebacker, wide receiver, safety, all lacking. I think we're all in agreement on that right now. Although wide receiver, you land Tristan Keys, all is forgiven there. Safety, that's big one. Big one's coming up here with Blake Stewart and Tyreek Green, and then DT we've been discussing. At linebacker, we'll see. I know they're pretty happy with what they have in the class right now with JJ Edwards and Jordan Campbell. By the way, I heard that JJ Edwards was put onto the staff by Jaden Wilkerson, actually. So Jaden Wilkerson brought him down basically to his visit. or to, I don't know if he was on campus before his official visit, but he alerted the staff of JJ Edwards. So that's a cool.
I like that. Yeah, keeping that Orlando tie. But going back to Maola before we get off him, 6'3", 340, high 3-star player. So you look at the high school, you say, I thought he's from Utah. I thought he's from Arizona. I thought he's from Eugene, Oregon. Now at Alabaster, Alabama, Thompson High School, I believe in P, this, I'm sure Coach Duasso probably knows because he's tight with this guy. I think Tua's dad is in Alabaster, Alabama. So he might be moving closer to his agent, who's Tua's dad. I don't think Tua's dad lives in Florida, or at least he doesn't. I think he's permanently in Alabama, and then maybe he comes to Florida. So that move to Alabama, which seems of all the moves, Arizona, Utah, Oregon kind of makes sense. Alabama's a weird one. I think that's because his agent, Tua's dad, Tua's Samoan, not Tongan, but that's where he's based. So I think you'll see all these connections play out. Obviously, Tua, the son is here. So this is something that it does make a lot of sense. Look at the report from Greg Biggins. Dominant two-way player who's getting looked eagerly as nose guard, as a center offensive guard. I think for us, defensive line. Offensive line, he's road grader, very physical, punishing run blocker, plays with a mean streak and has just the right amount of nastiness you want to see in the trenches, good pass blocker as well, light on his feet. And I agree with this breakdown here on defense. More of a straight line bull rusher, but shows good hands and a quick first step. True nose who can handle double teams, stuff the run, and win one-on-one matchups with his strength and toughness. Projects as a high power 4 player.
How is he a 3-star?
It's a good question. I can tell you, Oregon wanted him. I was reading through all the Oregon boards, reading the mock.
And FSU wants him too.
Yeah.
Not that means much for that, but
yeah. Yeah, exactly. They did get a couple. They got a couple poly kids. They got
Sport Mark says this kid isn't coming to Miami. I tend to agree, just to put it out there. But
well, I don't know. I mean, look, Mario called him on vacation.
Mario calls everyone on vacation.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a need. We recruit poly kids pretty good. Tua's dad is the connection. I mean, Tua's dad, I don't have any reason to think he's going to steer maybe to Alabama, but I don't think Alabama's been in the mix. Is Tua's dad more likely to steer him to Belichick than to Mario? I don't think there's too much of a difference there. Obviously, the son is here. I'm sure the dad's here all the time. Someone pointed this out in the comment. 26 says, tell him to bring Seaborn too. So what he's referencing, and I'll pull it up here, is
the QB.
Trent Seaborn, 2027 quarterback who goes to the same high school, Alabaster, Alabama. And I believe he's kind of shaping up to be Miami's top target, or at least one of Miami's top targets at quarterback in the next year's class, the 27 class. Number 16 quarterback in the country, 4-star player. Look at his visit history. I didn't show it, but he visited Miami, I want to say twice, unofficially. So that's a factor as well, is that this guy's visited Miami twice. Miami's made a big push for Trent Seaborn. So we'll see where that one goes. But I can see that happening. You got Tyson Bacon, who's a quick guy. Anthony Kennedy, who's a bigger guy, but more of kind of a body type project, where 4-star, but more of an upside play. Whereas this guy is just a pure, what you're going to get, straight ahead kind of bully. I think he fits in with those three. And look, those three is not a 5-star haul of Lamar Brown or James Johnson and those kind of guys, but I think that's a pretty good nucleus of defensive tackles that you're not taking a huge step back at the position, which is what you're trying to avoid. You're not taking that huge step forward where you're trotting out first rounders like Georgia was a couple of years ago, at least not on paper, which is what you really want to be Miami. Miami's kind of known for their defensive tackles historically, but at least you're not taking a step back. So I wouldn't be feeling great about defensive tackle if you get this guy and that's your class, but I think it's better than what it could be. So this was an interesting name for me.
Yeah, I think it would be a great get, but let's see.
Lamar Brown commits at, it says 4 hours. So what time is it? 9? Yeah, he gives that 1:30 maybe, something like that. 1:15. I think 1:15 is when he commits. Well, I might go live for that if I'm here, just for the fun of it. We'll see where that goes.
I want to get to this comment real quick because I think it kind of ties up my thoughts on what I was saying about just there isn't a recent track record with these D-line coaches at Miami in terms of producing guys. And Storm Warning says a guy like Justin Scott has to develop and be a number one pick. I don't know if he has to be the number one overall pick. So does Armando Blunt. Then it will become easier for us to get blue chip defensive tackles because we're killing it at defensive end. I agree with this statement, right? I think I would like to see more production out of the defensive ends, but they're recruiting it at a high level. And at D tackle, that's what it comes down to. If Justin Scott, I'm not saying it's going to have an impact on this class. I don't know that you'll flip. You could flip a James Johnson, but I don't know that it will happen based on, oh, wow, Justin Scott had a great year. I think it's more for next year's class, right? The guys that they're building relationships with that they can point to and say, hey, we already have this great relationship with you. Look what we're doing with Justin Scott, Armando Blunt, even a David Blay, right? He's got a chance to be a decently high draft pick, top 3-4 round guy with a chance to improve, right? So I think this season, because if you don't up your production at that D-line spot from last year, completely new scheme, some new personnel there, but you didn't add a whole lot in the portal outside of Blay, right? So you're pretty much running it back with the same crew of guys. They feel confident in that group. But if you don't see a big step, it's gonna be very hard again next cycle. I'm just gonna say it like that.
Yeah, but look, this is what you need. You need Justin Scott to develop. You need those guys. Like, that needs to happen. You won those battles. Now you gotta produce with those guys. It's sink or swim, but I think it's where I want to be. I want to be investing, even in Artavius Jones as a redshirt freshman, getting rotation snaps. That's where I want us to be. We got to get that going.
And look, it is about relationships, as online transactions says. It's more about relationships, but there's a lot of coaches with great relationships with top recruits across the country. This isn't. This is a tough decision for kids to make. They can have a great relationship with 2 or 3 coaches, and then you're going to have to go down to something else. All right, NIL package. NIL package is the same. So what do we go to next? How do I feel? Do I feel comfortable going to school here? Is it, can my parents get here easily? Yep, check that off. So what are we going to go down to? All right, there's always going to be that factor that changes it. Every recruit's different. And for a lot of them, it's this stuff. It's what's your track record with draft picks, because a lot of the other stuff is pretty even.
Couldn't agree more. Some more comments here I want to just get to on Moala. Timothy Frederick saying, this is why Miami's fan base thinks they're getting everybody. Coach makes one phone call and they're in the thick of the recruitment. He didn't move for Miami. I mean, I don't think he moved for Alabama. From what I understand, reading the Oregon boards, and again, this is a new name for me, so I don't know this to be a fact. A lot of coaches are on vacation, so I haven't gotten the full story here. But from what I can see from Oregon's side, Oregon wanted to keep him. He decommitted. His dad is trying to get back into the country. I'm assuming he's in Tonga. I don't know, but he's not in the country. This is what Oregon's saying from their mods. And North Carolina potentially is promising they'll get his dad into the country. They're working that one. At the same time, his agent, who's to his dad, appears to live in Alabama, or at least has connections there. So I think the move to Alabama, from what I could see, is more about the agent than like he's going to University of Alabama. I haven't really seen any Alabama buzz with Moala. It's more a North Carolina buzz at the moment, with Miami trying to make a move in. And just the reason I think that's significant is because the head coach is involved. Miami is very purposeful about getting Polynesian players. That's why, one of the big reasons why Coach Misa Pekka was brought in to the recruiting department. Mario, you know how he gets down with that. We were clearly expanding the board at defensive tackle with some of these misses. So there's money left over. There's need. Mario's kind of going to lock in on some of these guys that he likes. Clearly likes this guy. He reached out to him quick. So all those things, when you put them in order, leads me to believe we're going to be in the mix here. I could be wrong, but I think that's right.
Two Tone says Moten could really be the one to kick off that success, not as a first rounder, but getting drafted potentially. Yeah, I think he's got the size and athletic ability to be a big riser this year.
Canes Cat Heat 305 saying the Secretary of State is a Southwest alum and a Miami Hurricane alum. He's a Gator fan. I know that. I saw, talking about Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. I saw him when I left the Gator game.
His son plays for UF.
Yeah, his son is a running back for you. I think he scored a touchdown.
He scored a touchdown in the bowl game.
Yeah, he's all Gator. He was at the game, and he's very sad after that humiliating defeat.
I think he went to UM Law School. I think he's a Gator undergrad in UM Law School.
Yeah, but he was definitely upset when he saw the Canes, what they did to the Gators. His whole crew, the Gator fans, was heartbroken, which was, just seeing all the Gator fans upset was one of the high points of the season. You were with us walking out of there. Were you that? You were at that game. Your man Jose Lasso was out there riding the the statue of a Florida Gator like a horse right there, right there in front of all these guys. That's what we call
I've
Rubio.
seen the pictures. I've seen the pictures.
Let's see. All right.
I was gonna say that Canes Cat C305 is asking why we can't get Moala's dad into the country. Listen, when it comes to all this stuff, I don't know that Miami can't make stuff happen like some of these other schools, but I don't know that they're gonna be going and promising it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, ultimately, I think the recruiting pitch is going to be about the fact that, we have good success with Polynesian players. Coach Sho's not there. That would have been kind of an effortless type of connection at that position as he plays the same position. But Mario's got a pretty good amount of credibility with the community. You got kids there between Ala Fatuli, you have Mauanoa. I believe Israel Briggs is actually half Polynesian as well. So I was wrong when I said that we don't have any Polynesian players coming in. I believe Briggs. I've seen him wearing the Ulafala and all that stuff. So, yeah, man, we'll see where that one goes. But I think that's something to keep an eye on for sure.
So the last thing not last thing, but one of the next things you wanted to get to here, D, was Jackson Cantwell and his honor that he received yesterday.
Yeah, this was a crazy, man. So Max Preps, which does kind of high school athletics, high school stats, baseball, football, basketball, other sports, they released their top 100 high school athletes of the century thus far. So you're seeing like Missy Franklin, Olympian, Joyce Edwards, Ella Deladon, LeBron James, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, every sport, man and woman, and different types of high-end play. I mean, look at the top three here. So these are elite players. Derrick Henry, Joe Mauer, which to me, by the way, if I'm making this list, I know LeBron was great. Joe Mauer should have been the number one player on this list, hands down. I don't even think it's even close. But I mean, how is Joe Mauer not number one on this list before I get to Jackson Cantwell? So hold on, let me see if you can see the screen here. But yeah, so here's the list. So yeah, LeBron James, number one, Patrick Mahomes, number two, Kyler Murray, number three. Kyler Murray is definitely up there. Derrick Henry, 4, he's dominant player right there up near Jacksonville. And Joe Mauer, Yuli, yes, sir. Joe Mauer, number 5, which I'll get to this in a second. Because again, I believe strongly this guy should have been number 1 overall by a mile. But Candace Parker, Trevor Lawrence, Mike Trout, these are huge names. Look at this one, Cameron Boozer, number 20. First 3-time All-America, along with
4-time state champ. That seems like a pretty easy one there.
Gable Steveson, incredible. You go down the list. These are the best of the best, right? But then when you get to number 80, first Cane on the board, Jeremiah Smith, 74. Won't talk about that. 1 states and track. But here we go. Jackson Cantwell. Although he has a year left in high school, he's already 80. Look at that. Cantwell's already snagged Max Press Male Athlete of the Year honors during the 2024-25 year. Here in All-State MVP honors in football as offensive. I don't know if he played defensive lineman. I don't know if that's accurate. But he had the nation's best mark in the shot put, the best thrower in the country. So the number 1 football recruit and the number 1 thrower, basically number 1 in 2 sports. To me, that definitely earns a spot. I'd probably put him higher for being number 1 in those 2 sports. But that to me is the one. Here we go.
This is what I like. He said his response was, wow, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then this is like you said, he said, and with 1 more season to go chase some goals and get better. So he wants to move himself up that list.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's a goal-oriented guy. Special. I just think the intangibles and the athleticism is special.
I was going to make the same point Online Transactions said. He said LeBron's number 1 because his high school hype matches pro career. Joe Mauer was good, but didn't match his hype. He was an all-star, right?
Forget all-star. He's in the Hall of Fame.
He was the best. He was the best hitting catcher in baseball, right? For a while. And the fact that he was also a 5-star quarterback is, if we're talking about high school career, I get what D's saying, but I also understand with the hype as crazy as it was for LeBron and he matched it. That's always going to be the most, to me, incredible thing. Yeah,
no, this is an interesting discussion. Look, you talk LeBron. I really think Joe Mauer is the best athlete of this era overall. Maybe Otani now. Because you really look at it, you say, all right, here he is, number 5. In the 40 years, Gatorade's picked a National Player of the Year in football. Joe Mauer is the only selection who has never played a down at college football. So he went to the same high school as Steve Walsh, same high school as Chantrell Henderson in Minnesota. Not only was he the Player of the Year in baseball, he was the Player of the Year in football. He's a 5-star quarterback, like I said, the number 1 overall player in the country in both sports. So not only is he good at both sports, he was number 1 overall in both sports. Would have been a tremendous pro prospect at football. Was coming to Florida State. That was the early Rivals era, and I remember he was like the first player I followed as like that number 1 guy, or one of the first guys I watched as a number 1 guy. But then you go to the pros, Hall of Fame baseball player, best hitting catcher I have ever seen, and first professional baseball player selected to the Hall of Fame to play his entire career in the 21st century. He was also All-State in basketball. So you talk about All-State basketball, and then number 1 player in football and baseball, Hall of Famer in baseball, could have easily been a pro in football. To me, that's the best athlete of all time, or at least high school athlete of my lifetime. When
I feel like he retired relatively young too. Like he could have played a few more years.
Yeah, he had some injuries, but he was unreal. Kyler Murray, you put in that category too, top 10 pick in football and baseball. LeBron, obviously, you got to put him in a high category because he was a good football player as well. Jackson Cantwell climbing up the charts. The only one I disagree with on that list, well, I haven't looked at the whole list, but as far as omission from a Canes standpoint, Sean Taylor. You know, Sean Taylor as the all-time leading runner as far as touchdowns in high school until Derrick Henry broke that record. Then he also, had what he did on defense and special teams. I would have had Sean Taylor on that list. Derrick Henry's number 4.
The only thing that holds Henry back to me is that he was playing incredibly poor competition.
Yeah, which Sean Taylor was too.
Which the same thing for Taylor. I think you could probably say that for both.
But I mean, if these guys are giving Derrick Henry all that credit for beating Sean Taylor's record, and then Sean Taylor also was the best defensive player, I think that at least get him on the list somewhere. TJ Preble saying Derrick Henry was unreal in high school. Patrick Mahomes shouldn't be on the list based on. Yeah, I think Patrick Mahomes was a very good high school athlete, but he was really better in pros and college. Kyler Murray for sure, I think is up there because he was really good. He was picked in baseball more on traits. Joe Mauer was a better baseball player, but Kyler Murray was still a top 10 pick in baseball. Never played really after college too much because he stuck with football, and that worked out for him. The crazy about Kyler Murray, he's not even like the most high character guy. Like he has a rap for being kind of lazy, which is crazy considering he plays both sports.
Yeah, well, and he's as small as he is too. That's the other part of it. That's crazy.
Yeah, the speed. Who else is on that list? Hold on. Let's on the Mahomes. It's actually interesting. I didn't know this. So on the Mahomes, here's what they're saying. They're saying it's not retrospect. How was this guy a 3-star, by the way? Here's what they're saying on which actually is interesting. In addition to throwing for 8,400 yards in football, he scored 49 points in a basketball game and tossed a no-hitter with 16 strikeouts in baseball. While many slept on Mahomes in high school, we are rewriting history. He was the Max Preps National Athlete of the Year for 2013, 2014. How did this guy not get more attention? 3-star player.
Crazy.
What the heck is going on here, man?
Kendrick Merrick says he ain't better than Lamar Jackson.
Mahomes? I mean, I'm the biggest Lamar Jackson fan on the planet, but I think you got to give that to Mahomes. I say Mahomes 1, then like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson battling for 2.
D is a legitimately huge Lamar guy. He's a big defender of him in our chats. I am too, but not to the degree that D is.
Well, it's because in high school, I didn't understand, or in college, I'm sorry. High school, honestly, let me say this. In high school, I did not know he was going to be this good. I saw him play against Central.
We went to the game against Booker T, was it?
The one I went to, I went to Central, Boynton Beach against Central, and he didn't do anything. His team was really undermanned. It wasn't all his fault, but he didn't look physical like he did, like he became. He gained a lot of weight, and he's just a really smart football playing kind of guy. And all
right, Kendrick was talking about Kyler Murray. So
yeah, no, Lamar Jackson's definitely way better than Kyler Murray. Just better character, more football serious. But yeah,
He won a lot more than him.
no, he's better in every respect. But he's worked hard to get where he is, Lamar. I mean, we look at his natural talent, but I don't think people give him enough credit for the work he's put on his body, the work he's put on in his throwing. He should have been the fact that every team in the NFL passed on him. That's the craziest thing about Lamar. The guy was the best player in college by a mile. He had all the tools in the world. He was the youngest player to ever win the Heisman. So the youth was on his side. A lot of these analytical models put a lot of weight on guys that are younger. So he had all those things checked, never got in trouble. I mean, nothing. And then every team in the NFL passed on him. The Ravens picked him, but they picked that crappy tight end from South Carolina first. So
Hayden Hurst.
Every team passed on him.
Was he from Arkansas?
No, that's a different guy. That's Hunter Henry.
Okay.
Yeah, Hayden Hurst is from South Carolina. I believe with the Jacksonville Bulls, baseball player as well. Yeah, so every team in the league passed on Jackson, which is crazy considering that everything he did in college was right there. That was one of the big mistakes. But anyways, Jackson Cantwell, huge honor for him. Still number one player overall in the composite. The question is going to be, is he going to be a multi-sport athlete at Miami? And based on what I've heard, Pete, tell me if you heard differently. I know you're plugged in there in that room. I think with Cantwell, my guess, and this is not set in stone, is that he goes to college, gets there early, skips his senior year of track, works hard, gets a starting spot. And then if he becomes like a Malinois where he's a freshman All-America and he just kind of establishes the guy, then I could see him going back to track and then be setting ACC records kind of almost immediately.
Yeah, I think that's a good. Guess. I don't think deep down he really wants to give the throwing up. He wants to stop throwing, I should say. But he also is a very goal-oriented person and knows that his best chance to, because from what I understand, he's already like he asks a million questions about the playbook and scheme stuff, and he's really trying to get ahead in that aspect of it because he wants to be able to come in here and just worry about getting on the field and executing what he's supposed to do. So I would agree with that.
Scott asking, Cantwell would have been a national champion this year in shot put. He was the national champion. I think he's one of the top 3 throwers in high school of all time. The question is, if he comes back for his senior year, which is during when he'd be in spring practice for Miami as a true freshman, if he enrolls early. So if he does his track during that period, which again would force him not to enroll early, he has a chance to break the national record, which I believe is held by an NFL player. Michael Carter of the San Francisco 49ers, who went to SMU, 5th round pick, 3-time All-Pro for the 49ers there as a nose tackle in the mid 80s. So stud player from Dallas, Jefferson High School, 6'2", 285. This guy's a monster, man. But yeah, 81-foot shot put, which beat the previous record by 9 feet, is the American national high school record. I mean, what a throw. But yeah, that's who Cantwell would be chasing. I think Cantwell's already like 2 or 3 all time behind him, and he hasn't even had his senior year. He may not, because again, I think he's going to enroll early and play. But yeah, man, he is elite. Oh, Scott's saying, in college, I think his throw is better than the NCAA champion. Yeah, I think correct me, I'm not a track expert. Is the ball the same size in college and high school? It might be. I'm not a track expert at all. So someone in the comments, I'm sure, will correct me on that. But yeah, I think he'd be one of the top throwers in college immediately, if not the top thrower in college. So it's just a matter of when he wants to do it. I think in his mind, he's like, look, I can take a year off and come back and still be pretty good throwing.
The men's both use 16 pounds. So it's different for women's, but high school and college is the same. I just looked it up.
So yeah, let's look at the ACC championship shot put. So the men's.
Excuse me, I'm actually, I read it wrong. High school boys use a 12-pound shot put. In college, men's shot put weighs 16 pounds. So it's for women, it's the same. I read it wrong.
Okay, yeah. So but I mean, I think most people say he would be one of the top guys in the country, like immediately. That's kind of the word on him, that he would be a top guy pretty quick when it comes to throwing. And look, I'll tell you, when it comes to Cantwell, he's going to be in Miami one way or the other. Latest, summer, but I think most likely spring, and he'll be loading up on the best Cuban food in Miami, guaranteed. That's Islas Canarias Cuban Express. I heard he did have Cuban food on his visit. He hadn't been introduced to Islas Canarias Cuban Express yet. Once he is, he's going to be there pretty regularly. Is right there next to campus in the Dayland Mall dining pavilion. 40+ years of the best Cuban food in Miami. Just won another award from the Miami New Times, but they win awards all the time. The menu is elite. Let's pull it up here. You're talking about 7 different types of croquetas, sandwiches, empanadas, pastries, tequeños, soup, you name it. They got it at Islas Canarias Cuban Express, the #1 Cuban restaurant on the planet, conveniently located in the Dayland Mall dining pavilion.
Kyle says he's excited for the instant reaction pod today at 1:30 for Lamar Brown.
I got to do it. Yeah, I got to make sure we do it.
I mean, I should be around too. I got a haircut with our boy Oliver at Golden Touch after this at 10:45. What a great haircut! It doesn't even look like I need one right now, and it's haircut day. So shout out to Oliver.
Yeah, the best in the business, man. Shout out to Oliver, the most plugged in guy in the University of Miami. I think 1:30 is when the instant and 1:15, 1:30. Josh Gross saying, "You guys wake up early to get on here. I can respect it, man. I wake up way earlier than that. I got 3 kids." That's the only time I get to myself. I woke up around 6 today, a little late, but I took a nice little stroll to the beach, trying to keep an eye on the bait fish, trying to hit the tarpon there on the beach. Maybe before one of these shows next week. Got to wake up extra early for that, but I got to get the sabiki hooks ready, catch some of those pinfish, and bring in some tarpon. That's the goal. Saw some big jack, big snook. Didn't see any tarpon this morning, but I saw the bait fish, so that's what we got to do.
TJ Preble says, who would be your guys' #1 player you would want to flip? I still think we land Jason Lopez. If I had a choice, James Johnson.
Yeah. Well, yeah, any player in the country that we're after.
I think he's talking about the realistic, the guys who we lost out a recruiting battle on.
I would say, Lamar Brown, if he commits elsewhere, would be my #1 immediately. But if not Lamar Brown, Tristan Keys.
Yeah, I guess my answer is Keys. I feel like he's not a committed prospect the way that he's treated his recruitment. So yes, my answer is Keys. I think that, like I said, changes a lot about my perspective of this class because I think he's that sort of game-changing talent. But I think James Johnson fills such a big need for this class.
Yeah, someone's asking about Brock. So here we go. Juan Mo, have you seen Brock Lesnar's daughter? She might give Cantwell a run for his money in the shot put. Yeah, she won the college national championship this year, and I can't wait to see her in WWE. Hope she participates. Look at there, Maya. No DNA test needed. There you go, NCAA champion. I saw the president was even tweeting about her in the middle of this Iran Israel thing. That's how much of an impact she made. There you go, NCAA champion. Yeah, no DNA test needed on this one. I think we know who her dad is. So yeah, got to get her in WWE. I would have loved her in Powder Puff. Talking about my Powder Puff coaching experience. Would have loved to have Maya Lesnar there in the middle. That's all about defensive tackle. That's a pretty good one there.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, dude.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Let's see here. We'll see. Any update on Derek Cooper from Kyle Sands? Are we still in a good position to keep him home? I've heard nothing but confidence there. Not feel like it's a done deal or anything. It's one of those recruitments that's all over the place. A lot of people involved, all that kind of stuff. But I just think at the end of the day, Miami is locked in on him, and it's sometimes I've learned, especially when there's a lot of noise around a recruitment, you just kind of got to zero in on what makes sense. And that one makes a lot of sense. 1,200 people on live. Like and subscribe to the show. We got 1,200 on, man. We're on every single day. Plus, we do instant reactions, all that. Fresh is saying Beyonce is my 8th cousin. Huh. What's 8th cousin? How do you even get out there? What makes you your 2nd cousin? How do you know how that works?
It is your like your father's first cousin is your 2nd cousin.
Got it. All right. So shout out to Fresh.
Or your mother's first cousin. That's not your direct first cousin.
Online transaction. How realistic is flipping kids now with the contracts they sign in terms of future compensation contingent upon them signing with the school? It's a good question. I don't know the exact. Remember, there's the revenue sharing is trickier because that's like a college deal, right? They're in high school still. So, I don't know the answer. All I know is that Miami is confident they're going to flip a few kids during the season. So obviously they feel that it's realistic with, not the whole class. They're trying to build up the class as high as it can go, firmly in the top 10, but before the season, but then during the season, they think they can flip a few guys.
Hopefully it goes better than last year.
Kendrick saying, if we get Cooper, you think Javian Mallory is going to stay in Miami? Yeah, I think Miami has been honest with Mallory the whole time. They wanted him and Derek Cooper. That was never really like an either or situation. I think Jay Lamar was the one where it got trickier with the Derek Cooper, just because of the money involved, the where you had to place him, all that kind of stuff. I think that's where it became a little complicated.
I have some basketball stuff to get to. Something recruiting related for the next class. Let me pull it up here. So Jackson Richardson, the 5-star recruit from Columbus, his brother Jace just got drafted in the first round from Michigan State. The son of Jason Richardson, NBA great, former dunk contest champ, who turned himself into a 3-point shooter at the end of his career. But this is a guy who, obviously, with his father and his brother's track record and history at Michigan State, you would have thought lock for Michigan State. This is a top 20 player in the country. He dropped his top 10 yesterday. This is a guy who's staying at Columbus, right? There was a lot of talk, whether Columbus would keep things together when Moran went to Miami. And they've kept it together. Not only kept it together, they brought a couple guys in. Caleb Gaskins there as well. I'm hearing. So let's start with Jackson Richardson. Dropped his top 10. And as you can see, Michigan State has been omitted. Michigan's in there. From what I'm hearing, this is a kid who wants to kind of write his own story, so to speak. Doesn't want to follow in the footsteps of his dad and his brother at Michigan State. Alabama, I would probably say is the favorite right now, with Miami pushing heavily. So I think it's very early. This is a top 10, but Alabama-Miami battle early, I would say, for a top 20 player in the country for next year's class. And then with Caleb Gaskins, again, who's a top 15 sort of player, small forward at Columbus now. Miami's looking good there. I think things are trending in the Canes' favor. This is a 5-star prospect. This is a guy who, from people that I've spoken to, peg him as a future NBA player, just with the physicals that he has. I think similarly to Shelton Henderson, I think when he steps on campus, you don't know that he's going to be a 15, 20-point scorer immediately, but has NBA tools, which I think a lot of Miami's success over the past 10 years in basketball, yes, they've obviously put out pros. Lonnie Walker, Bruce Brown, that were big parts of these teams. Jordan Miller, I saw he was actually cut by the Clippers yesterday, had signed a 2-year deal with them. He's going to be on their summer league roster. But I think overall you've lacked like high-level NBA sort of bodies and athleticism across the board. That's what Gaskins would bring you. So looking good with him. And then Jackson Richardson, man, you're in the mix with him. Like I said, Alabama is going to be tough to beat there right now. But as online transactions says, Jay Lucas is going to construct these rosters, very, very strong rosters. At least the Lucas family is grassroots basketball royalty. And I actually saw the team running this morning, man, in the rain around the Watsco, and I was headed to the gym to put my own work in. I saw the team running in the rain. Listen, that's a big physical. You're still missing some guys. You're missing Saleh Altuntaj. You're missing Timotej Malovic, who are going to bring who are going to be 2 other big guys that you're bringing into the mix. But you've got some guys who have some real strength on this team. And you're going to wear a lot of teams down. We'll see how it all comes together. Shooting wise, D, we've harped on that a ton, but you are going to really, I think, take a lot of teams' will to play the game out of it once you get into that late second half, because these Canes are going to defend, and they're going to bring it from the rebounding standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, from an intensity standpoint, that I don't know that we saw that the last couple of years with this Miami team, right? So, yeah.
We talked about it yesterday. I think Virginia, if you look at it as a comp, I mean, there's not a lot of shooting going on, but the body types are very much strong, right? Talk about Caleb Gaskins earlier. I mean, Caleb Gaskins, from what I've seen, I mean, you've seen him more than me. He looks like Sheldon Henderson. They both look like plus in the strength department compared to the average high school player. And then obviously, we know Jay Lucas focused on defense. The shooting hasn't really come in yet. I'm sure that'll be part of the focus for next year's class, and portal as well. But it just seems like our strength levels are going to be
and size. I have Fresh 3542 says basketball center. We need a 7-foot center. We have one. Ernest Uday. He's 6'11", 7 feet, and from what I'm hearing, doing crushing these workouts, looking really, really like he's ready to take his game to the next level. Guy who can run the floor. Is a really plus athlete at his size. So I'm pumped, man. I think people can tell that I'm excited about the direction of this program. And stay tuned, because I should have next week some interviews with some of these top guys. Excited to kind of introduce the fan base to some of the new players on the team, as we have an entirely new roster. And that should be coming up here in the next week or so. Should have some basketball interviews dropping on the page. You guys remember to hit that like and subscribe. We're at 1,300 here live right now, so we go live every day. We're been looking at if you're just joining us, Lamar Brown, 5-star defensive lineman. It's decision day for him. If you're just joining us, you can rewind, and we talked a lot about it in the beginning. We've been talking about a bunch of other stuff here. Sorry, go ahead, D.
No, just to put the bow on baseball, you saw Canes Cat saying the brother Caden Gaskins, number 4 player in 2029. So maybe you get two for one there. But on the center, you mentioned Ernest Uday, who maybe you'll be talking to. Your boy, the Turkish Delight. I don't know if he's 7 foot, but is he 6'10" and heavy?
I would say 6'10", yeah.
He's a true center. He's a heavy guy.
And then you have Malik. You have Malik, who you could really play at the 5 as well if you wanted to.
Yeah, so I'm very bullish on
Malik.
The size
is taller. I mean, you had Lynn Kidd last year, but Malik is bigger than what your center was in Norchad Omir, and he's going to be playing. I mean, Shelton Henderson, who has a chance to be your starting 3 guard, is taller than Norchad Omir.
Yeah.
So across the board, you've gotten tougher.
But he was your only strong guy, Omir. Really, Cleveland was physically strong, but did not play that way. Pack was a small guard. The kid from Stetson, what was his name? The shooter Blackman was a small guard. But Theo was a small guard. Lynn Kidd was a non-physical center. So you were really Brandon Johnson was a stretch 4. So the physicality of last year's team was non-existent, and this year I think is the total opposite, which is why that Virginia comparison, given the way Jay Lucas talks about defense, to me makes sense. Online transaction saying defense travels, shooting is volatile. If you rely on defense, you will always be in every game down the stretch, and that's all you can ask for at the end of the day. I am super excited about UM Hoops. I'd love to watch a defensive team. Just it's fun to watch.
And D, of course, all the basketball coverage brought to you by Aries Law PA. Guys, this is my father, as I've mentioned many times before. This is estate planning, so you got to plan your future so others don't. Wills, trusts, probate law. Visit arieslawpa.com. Schedule your free consultation. And again, plan your future so others don't. You set a free consultation. His office is on Coral Way, headed towards Brickell in the Gables, and you can set up your appointment for free. arieslawpa.com.
Yep. No, that's like I said, basketball coverage, man. We are getting all of that here on Canes Inside, more than you're getting anywhere else. We'll be covering it heavy all year with Pete in the driver's seat there. Kyle saying, people saying two bigs in today's game doesn't work well. Is this true? One of my big concerns, Malik at Indiana did not play as well when he played with a rim running big center. He played better when he moved to the second unit, even though he was the best scorer on the team and was more of that offensive five. So I think that is something that this team's going to have to figure out, because really two of your top three players are going to be Malik and Uday, who are both probably offensive fives. Uday, a defensive five, Malik, more of a defensive four. So would you agree with that, Pete, that that's kind of what we got to see here?
Yeah, I think that there's a belief that Uday has more in his bag than he's shown, right? But he's not a guy that you're going to throw the ball into on the low post and let him work, right? He's going to get his buckets, I think, in transition within the flow of the offense, offensive boards, little dump downs to him from drivers. But I don't see him being a low post scorer you're seeing, double moves, drop steps, spin moves. I think he's going to win with sheer physicality and athleticism.
Yep. Although Ghostface CD Wright says two bigs worked very well for UConn.
They had shooters all over the place, though.
Yeah, no, they had a lot going on, but hey, work for them. It could work. Like I think as Online Transactions said, defense travels. I think that's the name of the game. Finishing up with some baseball here before we get out of here. JB saying, take a look at Juan Soto's baseball savant page. Yeah, all red. If you guys are MLB fans, check out El Big League Show, EL Big League Show, with me and Adrian Lorenzo, two-time World Series champ with the Boston Red Sox, former MLB executive. He gives some incredible insights on MLB players, the draft. We do a live stream for the draft on Sunday for the first round. Just having that kind of front office perspective, high level, is awesome, especially for someone like me who's a fan, but I never played at a high level. I like to learn, and that's definitely a way to learn. Some Canes baseball related questions. Let me pull up here before we got really rolling on basketball. Somebody asked about the baseball transfer portal. Let's see if I can find it. But anyway, someone asked about the baseball transfer portal. And what I'd say is, they're 954. I'd say watch the draft, right? I think the draft is kind of the big turning point for a lot of these guys. Is Ogden going to go pro? I would lean yes. Griffin Hughes, I would also lean yes. The high school kids, we'll see. You got Mario Magana, shortstop, probably more of an outfielder profile, switch hitter from Columbus, rangy dude. You could see him potentially going in the draft. Dylan Dubovic, big physical third baseman, a lot of tools. Mason Greenhouse, athletic outfielder from California. Eddie Zahn, hitter from Venice. And then I think the two guys I'm really watching on the draft, and this is to me the main name to keep an eye on in general over the next week, is Tim Piacentine, 6'2", 185. I think he's bigger than that now. Lefty hitting third baseman from Canada. He's been tearing up the pre-draft process, went to the combine, the MLB combine, and was just crushing the ball. He's going to get serious draft interest. Miami would love to keep him. I would view him almost like a portal kid. If Miami gets him on campus, that's an instant impact guy, going to be a centerpiece of the team type of dude. So he's the best, from what I can see, the best prospect of these high school kids that Miami signed. So I'd watch him. Also, Eric Peralta, big righty from Brooklyn, throws super hard. We'll see if he gets drafted. But those are the names to watch.
Very important stuff from Johnny Lagoon here. He says, hey guys, starting the pod late, and I know this was covered a while ago, but you cannot confuse Paulies. They take their birth nation very seriously. This is true.
I didn't confuse. I said Tongan. Didn't I?
Yeah. But then you were like, I'm trying to confirm. You can't claim it.
That's
can't claim it without knowing.
We'll confirm that before the next show. So I hope I didn't get that wrong, but I didn't screw up that recruitment. That'd be a mess. But anyways, before we get out of here, you want to look good. Miami Hurricane team store. They got more sales than you can believe. Some up to 70% off. They got a ton of new stuff from Adidas, so they're moving things at the team store. You can go there in person right across the street from the University of Miami. You go to MiamiHTS.com. If you're not local, it's MiamiHTS.com. This is the official store of the Miami Hurricanes. I mean, look at the hats, the shorts, the jerseys, the pet stuff, the authentic Mitchell and Ness, Ed Reed, Sean Taylor throwbacks, you name it. They have it at the Miami Hurricane team store. Promo code INSIGHT20, 20% off your first item. Oh, and before I forget, let me get this. They got a nice event here on Saturday. So give me 1 second to pull it up. But if you don't have plans on Saturday, man, you definitely want to check out at the Miami Hurricane team store the autograph session. Where are we going here? Canes Connection. Let's go. Sorry. Got an autograph session on Saturday with this is July 12th. So Saturday, 3 to 4 p.m. Elijah Lofton, Emery Williams at the Miami Hurricane team store. So check that out. 3 to 4 p.m. Saturday. Elijah Lofton, Emery Williams, signing autographs, taking pictures, you name it. Great events, a ton of up close interaction. It's not, it's not overly crowded. It's not like these giant lines. They're there. You're chilling. You're taking your kids, taking pictures, buying stuff. Hurricane Team Store, Saturday, July 12th, 3 to 4 p.m. And don't forget the promo code.
Man, good numbers today. We got almost 1,400 live right now. And we'll be back later today too. Hopefully with good news. I don't know that we're expecting that, but
we'll see, guys. All right, everybody. Like and subscribe. Go Canes.
Go Canes.